I'd like to introduce our first reader, Brady Peterson. He was born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in the shadow of the Second World War, also perhaps in the shadow of Geronimo. Brady currently lives in Belton, Texas, where he once built houses and taught rhetoric. He is the author of Glued to the Earth, Between Stations, Dust, From an Upstairs Window, and García Lorca Is Somewhere in Produce. Please welcome Brady Peterson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm related to most of the people here. Yeah, I have all those books for sale too if you want them. But if you steal them, that's okay with me too. And thank Connie for inviting me. I'm going to begin with, I used to be a home builder, and I'm going to try to read through most of the poems without much talking, but begin with the home builder's poem, A Chant. Soffit is a builder's word, a carpenter's word, like fascia and header and stud, top plate and joist. Soffit, though, has a mantra quality. Whisper it over and over as you slip into a deep meditation. Soffit, soffit, soffit. As if to quietly call the angels to your side, whispering low so they have to move in close to hear. What is it you want, they ask. Nothing. What is it you want? Nothing. Want being a deceiver's word, a labyrinth. The soffit seals the attic, keeping out squirrels and raccoons. Though a determined creature may find its way in, you set out a trap. Raccoon may be a mantra word as well, though you hesitate to use it. It's raining. You check for leaks, no habit. You listen to the rain as if the patterns were code one deciphers. Rain being a sacred gift, like air. What is it you want? Nothing. You are dry and warm inside your house. Puddles form on the driveway. I have 3 new poems I'm reading. This one is called Ping. That love endures seems little more than words chiseled on a tombstone. You own the morning, we own the morning, you and I. The house asleep, a light rain salts the metal roof. The coffee black, the sky an overcast gray, so we simply listen to the sun rising beyond the tree lines. We know it's there, simply know it's there. What sound? Does love last a day? Do angels, what are angels anyway but night wrestlers? Do they watch over, lean against the current for us, or are they only picking cotton growing in the black earth? Do they know any better where and why? Could they, if they tried, wrapped in their immortal boredom? You are here, now lit, fragile as fine crystal glass. Okay, this is a poem called Gray Mornings. It's in 5 parts. I am a boy. I don't remember how old, walking an Arkansas field with men carrying shotguns. 2 uncles, my grandfather, my father. They give me an unloaded .22 rifle to carry. The bull shows itself in the midst, in the field. It trots toward us. The men bend the wires of the fence and scramble through. I, on the other hand, stand my ground, shouldering my empty gun. Someone reaches over the fence and lifts me over in one easy motion. The men laugh. We sailed from San Juan. We dock in New York 6 days on the brooding Atlantic. Somewhere off the Carolina coast, we watch flying fish jet from the ship's wake and skirt the ocean surface. Look. We stop in Cuba for a day, 4 years before Fidel. My father smuggles a case of rum from the island where we lived for 3 years. Stateside. I am unaccustomed to the cold. My eyes burn. Coffee. Coffee becomes a gray morning sacrament, hot and black. We sit at a table in the Union and talk about the world unfolding before us, as if we were integral to the narrative, as if we knew things. 45 years later, Bob and I sit at a table in Central Market and talk about Canady, how he spent all those years in a monastery reading the original languages, Greek, Latin, French, German. I stand barefoot in the grass, wrapped in my jacket on a cold, misty Saturday morning. I am no longer interested in teaching or building houses. I try to feel the rotation of the earth through the soles of my feet. I know I'm on the list, but I don't think they're after me yet. You know the list. Mark, you know the list? The ferry. We each drink a warm beer and talk the world into being. Tanks roll into the city. We scurry across the rooftop, wait for choppers to fly us to an offshore carrier, wait to go home, though I fear home has been misplaced. I ride the bus to Dallas. You head for Seattle, where you intend to ride the ferry there, back and forth, to and from Bainbridge Island. I walk to Dealey Plaza and sit on the grass. At night sometimes, I speak to you, as if we were still young, as if angels had wings. Okay, this is from my book Dust. It's called Angel. Excuse me. A boy stands outside a car window, his hands and nose pressed against the glass. The driver starts the engine. A December morning. I don't want you to leave, he pleads, but there is no choosing, only the sting. His face fades into the fabric of stories told when boys gather in a drainage ditch between rains, about ghosts and spirits lurking in the smoke of candles, about a man who lives in the weeds behind the ice plant on the hill, who snatches young boys unaware, eating their fingers and toes. You saw him once, you think, when you pedaled the steep hill on your bike, the first of the stop, the sun waning, the first of the top, excuse me, the sun waning, a solitary figure rounds the corner of the building, waiting deliberately, a rush when the imagined becomes flesh. You turn your bike and flee, pedaling wildly down the hill, losing control. A mango tree grows into a giant. They live 100 years. You are standing in a road where the boy pressed his nose against the car window and cried. That's my Puerto Rico story. Y'all were there with me the second time. Talking to my daughters. I lived in Calle, Puerto Rico, and from 52 to 55. And we went back years later and everything's changed. And no one remembers me. only 55 years later. And this one is about my 5th grade girlfriend. It's from Dust. At least part of it is. Taking infield. The sound of rain on a metal roof, like childhood in a good dream, where he's still with the chocolate and coffee, the splatters of rain. I imagine you alive, emerging from your house as we wait for the bus to take us to school. Your red hair. It's raining harder now, a distant flash, and then the grumblings from the old gods. We once kneeled to them, sang to them, burned offerings. The last time I saw you, I was playing baseball, he says. If you saw me, you hit it well. Sitting in the back seat of a car parked on the road beside the park. We are taking infield. A child wakes in an adjoining room, whimpers, then a faint voice behind the door. You were 10. And Jack, who taught us more than aloud, was already packing to move, as we would in a week to Oklahoma. You emerged from your house in January, the mountains in the distance. Okay, a short introduction. John Berryman and Leopold Bloom, who's a character in Ulysses. No, I haven't read the whole thing. I have read the first half several times. Anyway, they both have an alter ego called Henry, who are, what Berryman say, have their difficulties. Okay, parting. John and Leopold share Henry's in a way, both naughty. The one is quite willing to jump your bones if only your husband weren't present in the room, while the other is content with a letter, knowing he will never see you, never touch. There are laws against both of decency, written on parchment with a feathered pen. How to begin, you and cry as we make our way down corridors crowded with paintings, Day God and his dancers, Manet. We are both in love with Morrison. Beauty flickers, the battery runs down, and you look for an outlet somewhere. I try to explain that one summer we laid Mexican brick in straight lines, troweling the mortar liberally and tapping into place each piece, the sun unmercifully hot. You dip your finger in cold water and touch it to my lips. We drink beer on a cafe on 24th Street between the wars, before the weddings, before the children were born, before decorating the Christmas tree. You try to explain the afternoon we met in the park to tell me we are both in love with Morrison, but it isn't enough. Okay, this is one of my many John Kennedy assassination points. This is the only one you could probably figure out is a John Kennedy assassination point. Called Holding Still. Holding Still. Still. Not steal, still. It's being Texans. Unspoken words to be delivered on a Friday afternoon. We listen, we wait, the urgency gone out of it for now. Gun down, riding the back seat, hands flutter. I imagine sitting at a window above the street, on a knoll, at a curb, anywhere, in a balcony eating popcorn. A disconnect when what was never supposed to happen. We keep watch, kiss in the front seat at a drive-in, as if kissing would glue the pieces back in place, your face glowing in the moonlight, your face now lost to me. We keep watch, an act of faith, we say, standing the night, waiting for dawn. You write to me from Spain, from Egypt, from Tokyo. Once ran the bulls in Pamplona, but it wasn't the same. I meant to write back, but mowed the lawn instead and cooked hamburgers on the grill. We stood watch one night and held the earth in orbit one Friday after they canceled play practice when the words bled down the page. And this is from my García Lorca book. Some dream of shoes. I dreamed last night I was dead, or must have been dead, because a shoe was floating in the air in my office. It was night, my wife asleep. I called her to come see the floating shoe, but she wouldn't wake up. It was then I realized I might be dead, death being a shoe. There was no tunnel, no light at the end. Instead, there was a long line of people moving slowly towards somewhere distant. It had a boot camp feel to it, a place where we were stripped of everything, our clothes, our hair, our first names. We marched through the snow. Artemis. When the slaughter ends, a pause between hostilities is all we really hope for. But if for a season, a decade, 100 years, we brew beer in the basement, barrels and barrels, a rose blossoms, a woman sitting at a cafe elevates her chin ever so slightly as she turns her head, you watch from a safe distance. She is waiting for someone else, the road. A boy joins the Union Army because he believes the girl will find him handsome in uniform. Months later, he is walking through an old battlefield of shallow graves, arms protruding from the ground. The girl has died, some fever passing through town. The war continues. The road. Bury the dead, the hallowed dead, speeches and hats and ties. Men, young men, sporting beards. They sing at night across the battlefield to their cousins, to die in the morning sun. She turns her head. To see her in profile is enough. Okay, I was reading a poem at a funeral this Saturday, and it was a sad poem about a younger cousin who had died. I offered to change the poem to this one to lift the mood. I said no, so I'm going to read it to you here. It's not really lifting compared to funerals. A focal point. My sister at 2 is found standing naked on the back porch with an unlit cigarette dangling from her lips. She shits in my shoe. She says it's because I wouldn't pay her any mind, probably true. My memories of her more cloud than rain, but how would she remember? My second daughter claims to remember events before she was born, so who is to know? I feel a twitch of pain. An evening at Ford's Theater, the world turns. Do we share memory with atoms in the air? At 4, my sister decides to run away. She packs a bag and heads out the door, down the street. We wave goodbye, and she collapses on the pavement and cries. Yeah, it's not that ugly. We thought it was funny at the time. Each to each. Sorry Mark Cannon isn't here tonight. He's the guy in this thing. You know, they say we're war veterans, and I don't think he served. Closest I got to Vietnam was, the closest I got to Vietnam was Washington, D.C. I was working in the city, but I did serve President Trump. I was there. I didn't have bone spurs. Got lost in D.C. one time. That was okay. Each to each. The center of the world is here. He pins the spot in a straw grass field, declares it for queen and country, will gladly shed what is required, blood if asked, sweat and grime, the air smelling of sawdust. He grips the handle of a tool, shovel, hoe, sword, spear, the rest of it lost in the glades. I find you in an empty room. You look up from your book, not all that pleased to see me. He drives to a desert town to drink tequila with an old war buddy. They sink into pine wood floors while the bartender pours another shot, shares an old tale without speaking. He leaves and makes his way down an alley in the darkness, his feet dancing on the edge of the solar system. Finds the old house, abandoned now. A shattered window, shimmies the door lock and enters. The room's bare, moonlight. You look up from your book. Okay, I've got 2 more poems. Is that right? Yeah. 5 years ago in 5 days, my oldest daughter died at Seton Hospital a couple of weeks from now. And a couple of weeks after that, my youngest granddaughter to date, Georgia, is back there. She was born in that same hospital. Magic stuff. And Jenna, let's see, Jenna Kirkpatrick lost a son, and she talked about when you lose a child, you find yourself seeking out the bathtub because that's the safest place you knew when you were a kid, and you're crying these snot-nosed tears. And then as time goes on, you realize that heartbreak never goes away, but it opens space for a gooey kind of love. And that gooey kind of love sustains you. Anyway, this is one of my many poems written about my daughter, at least the first half. He checks his luggage. How the ordinary clings, even in the midst of disaster. The hospital parking attendant takes your money. My child just died, you explain, as if it meant the natural order of collecting parking fees should change, as if the sky should be green. You drive the speed limit because you always have. The house is the way you left it, the toothbrush still in its holder, the coffee pot, socks on the floor. Something more should happen, he mutters to himself. Music, perhaps. A tango playing the backdrop, if this were a film. But the rooms hum in ordinary silence. This is no film. The last time I saw you, he writes in his notebook, the sun was shining. You smile at me, always enough. We talk as if we would talk again in a few days about your family being home for Thanksgiving, about mine, how nice to run into each other in a grocery store parking lot. Someone passes us pushing a cart. I should know this person, he thinks. We part. It's been a year or 2. I look for you, but the synchrony is missing. I open a bag of Cheetos, something to munch on as I drive back to my house. The toothbrush has been replaced with an electric one, something my oral surgeon gave me after implanting a screw in my jaw. Titanium, he tells me. That should last a duration. Suddenly it stops. The ordinary. That's how you know, he says to the woman checking his bag at the counter. And my last one, and this is an uplifting one, and my youngest daughter, Charlie, who's back there, is in this only at the very end. And she and her husband and I spent a day shoveling dirt. The joy. I've discovered a new favorite tequila. One should perhaps celebrate finding a new favorite brand, considering genes and the family tendency toward a brooding darkness, an oppressive heaviness of a man leaning into a boy, headlock suffocating. He comes out swinging, but it sips well and slow. Here in the bar, we enjoy a moment after working dirt in the afternoon. Sun sweating through our shirts and shorts, swigging water by the quart. After pizza and beer, here, where the bartender works smoothly making cocktails, then he pours a straight shot of a reposado that bites just enough. I pose with my hand wrapping the glass like an old gunslinger. But there is no holstered pistol, open or concealed. It's a pose, an attitude, taken from all the movies we watched as kids growing up in Texas or California. It's a good day, he says to his youngest daughter. Yes, she says, it is.